was a punk rock skateboarder, is what I was.
So when did the break happen? Like, what was that part of the story?
When did I go from being like a total jerk to wanting to play music?
Yeah, like how did you get your first gig, or how?
Oh, getting my first gig.
How did you get hired at first?
Great question. So, like I've said a million times, I started playing punk rock music. That's like kind of where I come from. Is, in some really, really bad bands. But I was in a band called The Agency in the late '90s and early, actually it was late '90s. It was like from '95 to '99. And Chris Carrabba, who is the songwriter in Dashboard Confessional, actually played in my band first. He was my guitar player, believe it or not. And he was in The Agency. And I toured, I probably did about maybe 600 or 700 shows with The Agency on the road. And we just never made it. It was just, still playing in people's basements and 30 people there that are, drinking beer, not caring. And Chris pulled me aside one day and said, hey, listen, I'm writing these acoustic tunes. I don't know if you're going to like them because I know you're kind of an aggressive drummer, but you might take some interest in it. You might want to play on it. And if you do, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But I'm planning on really taking this thing somewhere. I really want to record it. And I want to gig on it. And I said, yeah, I'll have a listen. And honestly, the first time I listened to it, I was kind of like, meh, I was kind of used to him being like this rocker guy, and I heard these like sweet songs, and I was sort of like, oh boy. And that was me. I was just dumb. I was just like this, pretentious punk rock kid. But I went home actually. I had this electronic kit at the time. I was living with my now wife. This was like 20 years ago. I was living in this little apartment, but I sort of learned my lesson, and I got an electronic kit. And I started writing drum parts to Dashboard Confessional songs. And I started thinking, like, this could be good. This could be like a break for me. Like, rather than being like animal, I can actually like use some of the things that I really learned, really worked hard on some of the more facilitated stuff I could maybe use on this gig. And I started liking it. I was like, Chris, I think I'll do this, man. Like, let's do it. I mean, I'll give it a year. And then like 11 years later, we were breaking up, and we had sold like 5 million records, and and it was just a whirlwind of craziness, honestly. But that was my first big gig, and it was something I started from the ground up. And that kind of brings me to sort of my next topic was, in the midst of all that storm, playing with Dashboard Confessional, doing all these gigs, Rick Rubin actually saw me play, and he hated the band, like just hated Dashboard Confessional, but he liked my drumming, thank goodness. And I moved to LA, moved my family out to LA. We had my first daughter, Betty, and we moved out there. And LA was horrible to us. We didn't like it at all. We knew that about 6 months in. And we decided to pack our bags and go to Nashville. And in that year span, somehow Rick Rubin got a hold of Dashboard Confessional's manager and got my information because he wanted to figure out a way to get me in on some sessions. And honestly, that is why every musician in the world moves to Los Angeles, is so Rick Rubin will call it. Hands down. I mean, that's no pun intended. That is literally why I moved there. So I packed my bags and I moved to Nashville. And, I'm living in Nashville for about a week, and literally on my birthday, I had a show in Nashville with my wife. I get a call, and it's an LA number, and I answer it. And it's American Recordings on the other line, and this woman says to me, hey, can you be in a session at Malibu tomorrow? I said, excuse me? And I'm thinking, like, this is a buddy messing with me. It was literally on my birthday. I'm like, this is, okay, who's this for? Well, this is for Rick Rubin. Okay, it's for Rick Rubin. Like, who's the band? The Avett Brothers. And I'm like, I've never heard of the Avett Brothers. Who's the Avett Brothers? So like, this is like a friend of mine just totally messing with me. So I said, listen, can I just call you right back? I don't mean to be a jerk, but it's actually my birthday, and I'm in the middle of something with my wife, and if you don't mind, can I just give you a call back in like an hour or two? And she says, yeah, sure, no problem. Take your time. I'll just let it, we need to know by at least like 5 or 6 p.m. I said, okay, great. So I get off the phone with my wife, and I'm like, you're not going to believe this. Rick Rubin wants me in a session tomorrow, right? And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, this is like Alex playing a prank on us, nothing. I'm like, I'm going to call Hard 8 right now. Hard 8 was Dashboard Confessional's management team, and I said, I'm going to call Hard 8 right now. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And I called him, and I'm like, Rich was our manager. I said, hey, Rich, do you know anything about Rick Rubin wanting me in on a session? I'm kind of chuckling. He's like, oh yeah, he just called last week, and or his people called last week and wanted your number. I said, okay, well I gotta go. I'll talk to you. So I called in back and I say, yeah, I'll be there. And I had literally just put a down payment on a house. I had no money. And I don't know if you guys know anything about airplane travel, but from Nashville to LA overnight, it's not cheap. So I said to my wife, I'm probably gonna need to spend about $1,500 tonight. That's okay with you? She said, no, it's not okay with me. Well, it's for Rick. It's real. It's a Rick Rubin. It's a session. She goes, well, yeah. Well, and she was like trying to find her phone so she could book a flight as quickly as possible. And I actually got a call back about 15 minutes later, and Rich, my manager for Percussion, said, hey, we booked you a flight, you're going. So that was like one of the biggest gifts they ever gave me. And so I talk a lot, sorry. I get on this plane. I had never heard of the Avett Brothers. This is 2009 or something. 2009, on a plane, I'm thinking to myself, what am I getting myself into? This is a Rick Rubin session. I'm not a school musician. I don't know how to read music. I'm going to get fired. So, get to Malibu. I get out of the car, and there's this huge gate. And I see these two hillbilly-looking dudes right there. So this is the big Rick Rubin session, huh? And sure enough, it was Scott and Seth David. And they were not hillbillies at all. They were the sweetest, most gentlemanly, wonderful people. They pulled me up into the studio, and I walk in, and the first thing I see is Ryan Hewitt sitting there, and I'm like, okay, this is real. This is a real thing. Ryan Hewitt is the engineer that worked on I Love You and Carpenter. And he's also done the Chili Peppers, and just he's awesome. And I'm freaking out. This dude's sitting there. Thankfully, Rick wasn't there because I probably would have just left. So I said, let me hear some of your music, and I'm literally like, you guys can imagine what I was expecting. I was already walking in there completely pretentious, like, yeah, Rick Rubin called me in here. And, you guys have beards. So they proceeded to play me Head Full of Doubt, One Full of Promise, and I was like, no, you didn't write this. What is this? Is this a joke? Like, where are the cameras? And I said, play me something else, and they played me On and On. And I was like, this is the best band in the world. Like, these are some of the best songs I've heard in forever. And we just sat down, and Dolph was there, and we gabbed, and we just started talking about music, and then finally Rick showed up, and we were playing music. And one amazing memory I have about making I Love You, I was in the room playing Head Full of Doubt, and Seth was in front of me. I kid you not. He was like this. He was like sort of orchestrating he had it all figured out in his head. This is exactly what I want. You got it, man. And we did it, and it was great. And then we got to the song On and On, and I started playing that song, and that song swings a little bit. I'm like swinging, I'm putting all these grace notes in it, I'm kicking it, and Ryan comes on the intercom and goes, dude, you're playing too much, man. You gotta tone that down. Can you straighten that out for me? So yeah, sure. So then I'm up there going, I'm just like playing super, super straight and rigid. He's like, perfect, Rick's gonna love it. I'm like, awesome. So Rick comes in the next day.